George Sears, or should I say Solidus Snake, is not a man without sin. During his life, he was involved in some monstrous things, be it mind-breaking children, establishing a crew of child soldiers, or, orchestrating the entire Shadow Moses incident. But this all being said, Solidus is a man with strong morals about freedoms and liberty. He was a man tired of his corrupt government and its secrets, and he decided to take actions. He wasn't a good person, but he was a true patriot. Born in 1972 through a cellular cloning project called
Les Enfants Terribles. You never did like the French.
The Terrible Children's Project, Solidus was a perfect genetic clone of Big Boss. Copying the data they gathered from Solid and Liquid, they figured out the perfect genetic match for the perfect soldier gene, or the perfect soldier DNA. This explains why he's named Solidus, because Solidus is the point in temperature in which an object shifts between solid and liquid. It also has to do with the fact that Solidus is the name of the coins that soldiers were paid in. Solidus would go on to be tested in a civil war, the first civil war of Liberia, which takes place between 1989 and 1996, which means that Solidus was about 16 to 24 at the time, but he came off appearing much older than that. This is due to him suffering from a much more accelerated aging failsafe that was used on all the Terrible Children clones, causing him to age much faster than Solid or Liquid ever had to worry about. Another fallback of this, being a clone that is, was Solidus was unable to have children. During the war, both due to his desire to test a hypothesis on whether he could shape someone out of ideals alone, and his desire to have a successor to himself just in case he were to die during the war, Solidus killed a young Liberian child's parents, and then adopted him. He named this child Jack and taught him many things, such as being ruthless in his killing, learning to lead an army, and how to honor a blade amongst anything else. He also, during the training of his child soldier unit, brought Jack in and had him injected with a serum used on soldiers during the Gulf War. This was a very basic version of the perfect soldier serum. Jack then went on to be one of the most successful child soldiers, earning the name the White Devil and Jack the Ripper. Though, after the conflict had ended, Jack and Solidus were separated, but they wouldn't remain separated forever. After proving himself to the shadow government called the Lalelulelo that he was a competent leader, the Lalelulelo entrusted Solidus with the White House and the presidency of the United States in the early 2000s. During this time, Solidus learned that not only he was absent from freedom as he assumed prior to his involvement with the Lalelulelo, but the whole United States was under complete media control. During his run as president, Solidus was involved in two major historical events, one of these events being his creation of Dead Cell, and another one being his biggest, his push for START 3, which is also known as the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. This was Solidus' mark on history, but the Lalelulelo wouldn't have it, and START 3 was effectively useless. Solidus grew to hate the Lalelulelo, and using one of the contacts he made after the creation of Dead Cell, he orchestrated an event to take place on Shadow Moses Island, behind the Lalelelulelo's back. The whole point of Shadow Moses' incident was to get Metal Gear Rex's nuclear test data. Solidus could use this against the Lalelulelo in a future event if he ever needed to. After the events of Metal Gear Solid 1, completely out of the control of the Lalelulelo, Nastasha Romanenko publishes a story detailing the events of Metal Gear Solid 1. This angered the Lalelulelo, and out of fear for his life, Solidus went into hiding, said to have resigned to the public eye. But his last action was paying for his allies' arm surgery. During his time underground, Solidus established quite a few things, one of them being his own private Russian army, then his own elite group of established Dead Cell members, and, most importantly, his sweet exoskeleton suit designed by DARPA. Its design is made after the synthetic muscles used on Metal Gear Ray. With all of these factors established, he was given the final tip he needed by an old ally, Revolver Ocelot, about something big inside the big shell. Or should I say, under the big shell. Solidus is told about Arsenal gear and the AI located underneath the big shell. So to get it, Solidus gathered his combined army and his Dead Cell units and renamed them into the Sons of Liberty and then attacked the big shell. He also took on the name Solid Snake to raise confusion and buy him some time. Along with this, his motivations keep appearing different to everyone he's aligned himself with or talked to. It goes from wanting to drop a bomb on New York, to establishing his own outer heaven, to getting $30 billion, to blowing up the big shell, or to obtain Arsenal gear all for himself. None of these goals are Solidus' goals. His goals were very simple, actually. Solidus planned to allow Raiden to upload the worm cluster into the AI core of GW. While it was crippled, he would gather a list of names inside of GW. This list of names was all Lalelulelo, and then he would take the list of names and leave Arsenal gear to his soldiers in the Dead Cell unit.
Planning to hijack Arsenal? Huh? You were going to screw me over, weren't you?
Who talked? Ocelot?
Not exactly. I was the one who used Ocelot to suggest the idea to you in the first place.
What?
I was planning to give you Arsenal to begin with.
This was used to distract the Lalelulelo while he goes and eliminates each of them from the shadows. Little did Solidus know that he was still part of the Lalelulelo schemes, and the worm cluster was set to destroy the data of the list of names of the Lalelulelo. Solidus had turned from a simple grudge against the Lalelulelo full-on hatred in their practices and actions. This is why he coldly kills Olga without a second thought, even though she's working for the Lalelulelo to save her own child. Though it is revealed to Solidus near the end of the game that he himself has been used by the Lalelulelo.
I wouldn't have minded watching some more of it, but we're running a little short on time.
What are you talking about?
Everything you've done here has been scripted, a little exercise set up by us.
Exercise?
The S3 plan was conceived as a means to produce soldiers on par with Solid Snake. That's what I told you. But the VR training the boy was put through is not the meat of the project. This is the S3 training kernel.
It was being used for a program called the S3 program. The S3 stood for Solid Snake Simulation. This was designed to turn soldiers into Solid Snake through a convenient fantasy given to them. This robbed Solidus of the son that he had created and turned him against him. After Ocelot reveals himself to be part of the Lalelulelo, he then sends Arsenal gear colliding into New York's Manhattan Island. Both Raiden and Solidus fall onto the roof of Federal Hall, and finally, Solidus begins to explain himself fully to Raiden.
Federal Hall!
What are you laughing at?
Do you know what day it is today?
April 30th?
That's right. George Washington took office as the first president of the United States of America 200 years ago today. And it happened right here. We were going to declare another independence, the dawn of a new nation, here. The end of the Patriots' secret rule, liberation of this country. This was where it was supposed to begin. This is where freedom could have been born.
All you want is power at any cost.
Jack, it's not power I want. What I wanted to take back from the Patriots are things like freedom, civil rights, opportunities. The founding principles of this country. Everything that's about to be wiped out by their digital censorship. Jack, listen to me. We're all born with an expiration date. No one lasts forever. Life is nothing but a grace period for turning the best of our genetic material into the next generation. All I want is to be remembered by other people, by history. The Patriots are trying to protect their power, their own interests, by controlling the digital flow of information. I want my memory, my existence to remain. Unlike an intron of history, I will be remembered as an exon. That will be my legacy, my mark in history. But the Patriots would deny us even that. My clone brothers and I are called monsters, replicates of evil genes. You are one of a kind, but still a monster, shaped by a dark and secret history. We need to decide which monstrosity will have the privilege of survival. By the way, Jack, I was the one who killed your parents. It's time we were both free. I have other reasons for wanting you dead. The clues to the Patriots inside GW have been erased, but there are other traces. Inside you.
What?
The information is being carried by the nanomachines in your cerebral cortex, and throughout the neural network they formed. Brace yourself.
Solidus' actions here show how earnest he is to his own word. He frees Raiden and gives Raiden all the information he's been keeping from him, even the information that would make Raiden hate Solidus and turn him against him. This allows Raiden to make his own decisions. This allows Raiden to be truly free from anyone's control. Solidus shows that he only truly wanted two things out of life: his name to be remembered in history and a son. Lalelulelo took both of these things away from him, and his only option to try and free the American people was to kill his own son and take the information from Raiden's nanomachines located within his brainstem. These nanomachines have the location of the Lalelulelo within them, but he would end up dying that day when Raiden slices down his back and separates his spinal cord. He then drops off Federal Hall and reaches up to the America that he couldn't quite reach. Though, this wasn't the end for Solidus, sadly. Solidus' body wasn't completely dead. He was only brain dead, actually, and his body was recovered by Paradise Lost, an organization run by Big Mama. His living body was used as parts for a recovering Big Boss, and finally, he met his true end in 2014 when he was shot to death by a Zeus cannon held by Liquid Ocelot. Though this was only because they thought he was the real Big Boss, even though he was only being used as a decoy. Solidus and the Boss were very similar, actually, given that they were both taken advantage of by their given shadow governments, be it the philosophers, Lalelulelo. Though the biggest difference is the Boss, when given a mission that would be the end of her life, she was completely taken advantage of, she played her part. Solidus fought back. Solidus' passion and dedication came from his desire to make something out of his life, a life of a soldier that was forced onto him that he had completely no knowledge of anything else besides. He believed deeply in the ideas of the American dream and idolized people like the Founding Fathers, specifically George Washington, and his primary motivation for his actions were to destroy the Patriots and bring power back to the people, much like the Founding Fathers. He did so through radical methods, but he always valued strong civil liberties and personal freedoms, even if they conflicted with his goals. As long as someone wasn't working with the Patriots, he didn't care what they chose to do with their life. So when you remember Solidus, be sure to remember him not as the horrible monster that he used to be, but as the proud patriot he died trying to be.